Hello, I am Amanda Wheel, style specialist and CEO of the Style Awakening. I'm so excited for the
Mhm.
conversation that we're about to have with this amazing soul that I had the pleasure
Oh,
of meeting recently when I was in Portugal. So we are going to have a beautiful conversation with Jacob. And
mhm.
Jacob, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
and
really,
before we dive in, I'm curious if there's anything that you would like to share with anyone um, about you, and then I'll kind of like dive a little bit more into how we met and all of that. But if there's anything that you just want to share with everyone real quick about who you are.
my name is Jacob. Yeah, I'm from Portugal, from Lisbon, and I am an actor. And then I also dove into like fashion design. So, I just want to be in creative fields. That's pretty much what I would consider myself, like a creative person. So, anything fashion, anything acting, all those things, and all sorts of design. Just whatever outlets we can find to express ourselves. That's very important for me. And yeah, we met whilst I was working in Lisbon in a concept store that sells mostly Portuguese brands. Really,
So
really nice place. And yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. It was a store that caught my eye a couple days prior, and I didn't have time to pop in. And so when I happened to be back in the
Mhm.
area in Lisbon, I was like, all right, and I was alone. I was like, yes, I'm gonna pop in. And I was blown away by the store. I thought it was so cool, the concept of it, to bring in all these different designers, especially the local designers. And there was something about your energy that I was super attracted to, and was so grateful that we got to just stop and pause and have
Mhm.
a really beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to bring some of that conversation back today because I think what we were talking about was really important. And so I want us to share that message with everyone else today.
Mhm.
So before we jump into that, I'm curious, like how did you get into fashion? Like what was your
Yeah.
start? What was it that like sparked in you?
I mean, it's one of those things that like it's very hard to pinpoint a moment or a specific event or something because it's always been there, always
Okay.
been there. As
Okay.
as I said, like I'm a very creative person and I really want to work in creative fields and um the way I express myself, whether it's through my words, whether it's through my actions, or with the way I put myself together, with the way I dress, and all of those things, those are so, so important to me because it's ways of communicating something
Agree.
that I might not be, sometimes comfortable saying with words, or just an enhancement, like just making my message come across stronger in some way or another. But fashion has always been there. I usually joke around with my family because when I was younger, of course, I couldn't dress myself. My parents would dress me.
Right.
And sometimes when I look at photos of my younger self, I'm just like, gosh, those outfits are really, really bad. Those outfits are really, really bad. So I wish I could go back and like
Like
change my
Photoshop.
yeah. No, but it truly has always been there. And of course, in this day and age, we're always surrounded by a ton of images and videos. So of course, from a very early age, I've been surrounded by images from people around the world and from all of these fashion magazines and fashion houses. And so there's always, sometimes it can get a little bit too much because there's sometimes an oversaturation of content and images, but that's a whole other subject.
Yep.
But in that sense, I've been very fortunate to have this chance of like looking around, finding my inspirations. And in terms of fashion, I think it's hard to explain, and it's one of those things that the people that get it, and the people that don't. So
Mhm.
with fashion, it's like you either get it, you either know it, you either like feel it, and it's something inside you, or you don't. You know what I mean? I think that I respect everyone's style and sense of style, but some people do need some help or some enhancements, or
Yeah.
need to find their way and some guidance. And I know you do that as well,
Yeah.
which is great. But some people just like they just get it. I don't know what I mean. And I like to think that I get it. You know what I
You
mean?
get it.
And
Yeah, you get it. it's,
Yeah.
you have a way of, it's like style and fashion becomes the expression of your inner essence. And you know, we live in a society where whether you like it or not, we're being judged within the first few seconds.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like you need to dress in a certain way to get people to like you. It's more of like, are you dressing in a way that's expressing the true you? Because people are going to judge you no matter what. So you might as well show up in a way that feels like you, so that people are making like, you know, they're getting, right? It's a way to like.
For me, there's nothing superficial about, you know, style. And oftentimes people like to say it's something very, you know, on the surface level, or something that's not really relevant, or, you know, how you present yourself, how you dress. For me, it's tremendously important. And also people sometimes have this misconception of like, you know, sometimes the way you dress is a shield, or to protect yourself, or to hide. It's completely the opposite. I mean, sometimes in some situations it can shield you a little bit, but I think that it shields you in a way to like make you stronger, not to like hide yourself so much. You know what I mean? And for me, you know, throughout my life, and I'm still young, still lots to do, to see. But the way when I started, you know, getting into my teens and stuff, I really started realizing, you know, the way I dress is honestly sometimes in some situations the best tool I have to express something, to make a point. And throughout the years, I've grown to realize that the more and more, and this is terrific, I think, more and more I'm dressing for myself and less for others. And again, we all know how today's society is, and the pressures that we have, and how everything is oftentimes so image based. And you know, you want to present yourself a certain way to you know, to go to a job interview, to get a job, to there's all of these like unspoken rules, and I get all of that. But the more I realize that, you know, sometimes I might be going through a day where, or through a time where I'm feeling a little bit insecure about something, or self-conscious, or I'm putting too much weight into other people's perceptions about something. But fashion, or the way I dress, is always secure. It's always like my thing that I always hold very like dear to me. And like, okay, at least I know that the way I dressed today was, you know, the way I chose to dress today for myself. And this is not, and again, this is why I always try to say this to people. It's not like, this is not a vain thing. This is not a superficial thing. It's not, but like I look in a mirror and I'm like, I love my outfit, or I love these pieces, or it just makes you feel so much better. You know what I mean?
Everything you're saying, like this is like what more people get to preach, right? Because there's so many things you said in there to unpack. I think number one, it comes down to the intention, right? The intention of why you're putting on the clothes. And as you were saying, right, we get to use style and fashion in a way to put the clothes on for ourselves, to make ourselves feel good, to elevate our energy so that we show up in a certain way. That's totally what it is. And that's what I always preach to people too, because I think it's so important. It really has a way of like changing us. Like I put on hot pink and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, let's go on boss mode, right? There's like, there's certain things that just elevate you instantly. And it's helping people understand that there is so much power when you're intentional with your style, versus like you were saying, like it's not to like have the latest and greatest Chanel or the latest and greatest designer this because your neighbor has it, right? It's not, that's not the right intention. And that's just, you're going to constantly chasing versus allowing style to like let you truly show up in your highest.
And I get the pressures. There's lots of pressures, especially I mean, not especially amongst young people, but at least it's my experience as a young person. There's a lot of pressure to always have like the newest thing, or to follow certain trends, or to always have something new. Just always be constantly, you know, have your hands on everything. And you know, I don't do a lot of like impulsive purchases, but the few that I've done, that I was, you know, intentionally or subconsciously following a certain trend, or following a certain, you know, it's very, those purchases that I did are never like the best ones that I did. You know what I mean? When it's that thing. But yeah, we like to, when I was, when I knew that we were going to have this conversation, I was thinking about how we think about fashion and how we think about like how we plan our days, considering the outfits that we're gonna have and all of those things. And I was thinking, you know, we live in a overwhelming, crazy, fast society's world. Everything's just
Yeah.
at a fast pace.
Yes.
And we oftentimes feel very small. And I think that this is an issue that relates to everything, with politics, with ideologies, with everything, and with fashion. We feel very small, and we want to be part of groups. You know what I mean? We want to have our own community. We want to have, so when we see a group of people wearing certain designers or expressing themselves in a certain way, we want to be part of that.
Yeah.
But then what happens, which we've also talked about in the store, it's this like, then everybody starts wearing the same things, or
Yes.
there's no creativity, there's no personality, there's nothing. I really think about, and I try to think about and celebrate my own, singularities.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But then what happens is there's this huge pressure to have a certain designer, there's this huge pressure to have a certain amount of clothes, and then everybody starts wearing the same things for no other reason other than just because somebody else is using it.
Yep.
And that's what I think is sad. Yeah.
It's interesting because yes, we see it in style, and just like you were saying, we see it everywhere where it's like everyone has this, I don't like to use the word herd, but like there's this herd mentality where it's like, well, I have to do what everyone else is doing because then I fit in. And it's like this desire to fit in, right? And it's that figuring out that fine balance where you can still be yourself and show up as yourself, and trust that when you're showing up as yourself, you're naturally going to attract in your vibe of people. Like you're going to attract in your group because you're being yourself versus showing up a certain way to fit in. It's really fascinating. And I do want us to,
people, because like we're not trying to like reinvent the wheel or reinvent something, like, because so much has been done already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many people have already used, wore a turtleneck with a button up and some pearls and all of that. It's just about, instead of like going with the herd, like that sort of herd mentality, just finding your inspirations, putting yourself out there, looking around, studying your environment and the people around you, and really having that like hunger for other things. And then it's great because you can like pull some of the stuff that you like,
right?
I like this, I like that, and just like make your own vibe, make your own thing that's yours.
Exactly.
There might be familiarities with some other stuff, so there's might be some things that people identify, and it's always good when people identify stuff. It creates that sort of familiarity and talking point. But it's always great when you like do your little own mashup sort of thing. That's so important.
I agree. And I think it takes, I love what you were saying. It's like, just takes curiosity, trying different things and seeing when you when you put it on your body, does it feel good? Wear something for a day. Does it make you feel good? Like it's like bringing more attention and awareness into how you feel in certain styles, which I don't think a lot of people do. So it's like just being a little bit more intentional, just like when you eat food, like being intentional about how does it make you feel after you eat it, right? Knowing if you should eat it again. It's the same with your style, and just getting really curious of like, okay, I like this today, I might do this again, right? And trusting that your style might change a little bit, but just listening to your inner guidance. Yeah, I'm with you. So I would love to dive a little bit more into Portugal fashion, because we chatted a little bit about this and my eyes were opened, but I'm curious, like when you think of Portugal fashion, what are you guys most known for? Is there something you feel like you're most known for?
We're a small country, especially when compared to the US, but we are a small country.
Small yet beautiful.
Yeah, truly beautiful. I mean, we have more than 900 years of history.
That's what I love. It's like,
it's extremely rich in stories and history and all of those things. But our industries in general are smaller. our scale is smaller, including the fashion industry. The fashion industry it's been getting a little bit more broad, and it's been opening up, especially to the global market. That's another thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
In general, it is a relatively small industry, but there's been like an insurgence, right? Of like new brands by carrying Portuguese names with Portuguese designers. But when I mentioned the global market, the thing is, like, there's a lot of brands opening their doors. There's a lot of brands starting now. There's a lot of really cool designers, but then they're really focused on the global market, on the outside market, not so much within Portugal, which is something that we've also talked about.
Right.
There's a lot of unknown Portuguese brands in Portugal, but then they might have a platform, they might have a following base outside, outside of the country. Also because the oh gosh, I forgot the purchasing the power of purchase. I forgot the expression. The Portuguese power of consumer purchase thing is not as high as in some other places. So a lot of times Portuguese brands.
Got it. Like you mean like the ability to purchase.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Because of prices. Because of prices.
Yeah. Yep. To make something good, it costs money to source ethically source materials. The factories that you choose, all of those things, it costs money.
Of course.
And so I feel like a lot of people in Portugal discard all of these brands from the get-go because they're not going to be able to afford it. They don't even care to look too much into them or something. And also those brands also don't really market themselves to the country itself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we do have, as I mentioned, we do have many factories here in Portugal making really good stuff. I know some people inside the industry. I even have a friend that started his own brand very recently, and the way he talks about the factories and all of those things, like there's really good materials in Portugal. We talked about the leather goods, which is something that nobody knows.
That's what I had no idea about, was that leather. Yeah.
You think about fashion, and you think about European fashion, and you think about the fashion capitals. You think about Paris, Milan, and London.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
And then you think about luxury items and leather goods, and you think about all those big houses, luxury houses from France and from Italy. Like you think about Italian. Yeah. But then, like, people don't know about Portuguese leather goods. We are terrific with dealing with leather, and more often than not, the Italian shoes that you're wearing are made from Portuguese leather, or the French leather bag, leather luggage that you're wearing, carrying a French name, carrying an Italian name, carrying a British designer. Those leathers, that the treatment and all of the craftsmanship came from Portugal,
right?
Which is something. In part, it is our fault. We always joke about this in Portugal, that we don't market ourselves really well, which is true. And I think it's been getting better with some people, younger people that studied outside, traveled the world, and know how other people in other countries, in other industries market themselves. And it's been getting a little bit better, but still, we don't really market ourselves very well. But yeah, we are terrific. Really good with leather goods. Our shoe industry is truly one of the best worldwide, truly. The quality of our shoes, we do have a lot of really good shoe brands, and the quality, again, related to leather goods. But the shoe industry is really good, has been flourishing since forever. But that's the thing, like a lot of these Portuguese designers, they might produce in Portugal, they might carry a Portuguese name, but then their stores are, spread out throughout Europe, even
Right.
America and all these continents, but not so much in Portugal. So yeah, a lot of, perhaps even in a lot of Portuguese don't even know about like the huge amounts of talent and quality that's here. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. It's so fascinating, right? It's like
Mm.
you think about that. Why do you think it turned into that? Like, what do you think happened to create that? Because wouldn't it be beautiful if we were back in a world where we were actually buying local, right? Like supporting local and supporting our local economy.
I mean, it is tremendously important to buy locally and support locally and to really. Sometimes people think that it's such a huge hassle, and sometimes it is a huge hassle because some brands are very secretive,
Mhm.
all those things. But it doesn't take a lot just to do a little research about. Okay, I like this piece. What's the brand? Where's the brand located? Where's the brand based in?
Mhm.
Who's the designer or designers? Where are the materials being coming from? Where are they sourced? All those things.
So important.
Um, and it's been an increasing trend lately, especially with global warming and all these,
Mhm.
climate change, which is huge. But people have been paying a bit more attention to that. Um, it's been quite the trend, but I think it's a trend that's going to stay,
I agree.
and intensify and diversify.
Mhm.
But just as it's been happening around the world, it's also been happening here in Portugal. And again, with younger people, especially young, I think that movements and cultural changes always happen quicker amongst younger people, because they're always on the lookout. And especially in today's world where everything's connected, everything's so easy to get a hold,
Mhm.
everything's connected. Um, but yeah, there's people my age, me included, really do pay attention. And we, for example, the secondhand market,
Yeah.
secondhand market is huge right now.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I was also thinking before we started this conversation, the thing that I mentioned with people feel small and they want to be part of a group, but then everything becomes the same. Everything is the same shade. Everything has the same tone, and it's not fun. It's not creative. Everything. I think that with the trend of secondhand, it's
Mhm.
kind of like a bit of the herd mentality, but it stands out because generally speaking, vintage pieces, secondhand pieces are different. You know what I mean? It's not
Exactly.
mass
They're unique.
produced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of a kind.
So I've been finding that very interesting because it is quite a trend. Everybody's going to secondhand shops, everybody's selling online, everybody's buying vintage and all those things. But what I truly appreciate about it is people are finding different pieces. People are
Yeah.
finding things that stand out a little bit more, and that increases one singularity, one style, and I truly celebrate that.
Mhm.
But yeah, and in terms of our brands and our Portuguese brands, and in terms of buying locally, there's also been an increase with these shops, the one that the one that I was working in,
Yeah.
these sort of concept stores that are, the home of so many other brands. Most of them that don't even have like a physical store. That's
Right.
like the only space that they have. Because also
Right.
there's a lot of there's this online market. So for a lot of brands, it doesn't really make sense to have a physical space or
Right.
all those things. But there's been an increase, especially in the bigger cities and especially in Lisbon, of these stores that
Yeah.
are home to all of these brands.
Mhm.
Um, but just as I mentioned, when we last spoke, 99% of the people that show up to the store um, are tourists, are
Exactly.
foreigners.
Right.
It is very rare to see Portuguese people getting there, and when we do, it is people from a higher class or have a
Mhm.
higher purchasing power, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to sometimes want to dress differently, don't really know where to look for it. Some people don't like the idea of buying secondhand, or some people don't know where to find secondhand shops. And so amongst all this like wanting to look different or wanting to find new pieces or wanting to stand out, then people turn to fast fashion, which is something also mentioned. And it is, I mean, it is a huge problem that, you know, we all can do our little efforts.
Yep.
But unless all of us get together and really say no to some of these, you know, some of these brands, some of these websites, some of these, they're just going to keep.
Well, they're going to keep, and I think a lot of people just don't even realize what fast fashion is doing to the world. I think they just don't get it. You know, they haven't put the thought into it. And I keep thinking back to like back in the day when it was a big thing to go and get new clothes for the school year. And that was your, it was like you would go and you would get new clothes for the school year, and then maybe you would get something at Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting, and it was a big thing. And it wasn't just shopping every weekend, which is what, you know, our society has turned into. I think everything, they want instant gratification in all areas, right? I want to lose weight tomorrow. I want to like be healthier tomorrow. It's like we've become this world that wants instant gratification. So we're seeing that in fashion.
Yep.
Right. And
everything's so instant and so quick. And I have even noticed that in my own day-to-day life, you know, with social media, with everything's so quick. Yeah. And so our attention span has decreased so much. Our patience, our everything really. And so people just want quick results. People don't, and they want to try new things, but then they just get tired of it. And that's the thing. There's not a lot of intention. I think that especially when you don't have a lot of funds, you need to be very thoughtful about what you purchase.
Yes.
I think that you should treat yourself. I think that we all should treat ourselves.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's just in the holidays or not. We should really, you know, take care of ourselves and the ones that we care about. But we should be thoughtful about what we are buying. And buying in those fast fashion websites. And I don't shame people that do, because in a way, I do understand that some of those consumers, I myself have been tempted. Like, I've never bought anything from those big fast fashion websites, but I myself have been tempted.
Oh, I
just want something new or something sparkly or something different. You know what I mean? And you don't want to take the risk of buying something that, you know, perhaps your wallet cannot afford.
Right.
Those kinds of things. But I do understand, you know, the societal pressures and all those things, and people really turn to those things. But then it's as you said, a lot of people don't know the actual impact of fast fashion, and they don't know how massive it is and how it involves everything and it affects everything, because people just think, oh, it's just bad because a lot of clothes go to landfills. No, it's not just that. You know, from the chemicals being used to dye clothes to the manufacturers, to sweatshops, to
the treatment of the workers.
Yeah, the humanitarian issues. I mean, it's horrifying.
Yes.
But then what I also find very dangerous and worrying, which I also understand, is how some people are aware of these things, but they're sort of numb to it.
Yes.
Which I think it is a very thing of today's society, because everything's so quick, everything's so massive and so big, and so on to the next thing. And there's this, all these crazy events happening in our countries, outside our countries. So many geopolitical, societal problems, issues. People are just numb. You know, there's so much noise and people are numb. And so what happens, sometimes I have some conversations with people my age, with some of my friends, trying to understand, why did you buy that from that website, and why not go somewhere else? Why not wait perhaps another month so you can save up a little bit more, so you can buy a piece that's going to last longer?
Yes, you know, a much nicer quality piece.
People are just numb. You know what I mean? Numb to all these things. It's not that they don't care. It's that, they're not really confronted with the actual impact of.
Well, yes. And I think what you were saying earlier too, how we are just like one small blip in the universe. Like we're like one small blip. So I think a lot of people feel like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just one person. I'm not going to make a difference. And what they don't realize is just what you were saying, that like it starts with one. And like if all of us were to be more conscious of our purchasing decisions and what we're buying and what we're investing in, then slowly that starts to have a ripple. It's like it just starts with one, you know, your actions do.
It is.
Picking up trash outside does make a difference, you know, because you might be saving a bird or you might be saving another animal, right? And it's like it's like the ripple effect, and realizing that we are all together co-creating the world that we're experiencing. So yes, like your decisions do matter.
Yeah.
And something else that we were talking about, which I think is so powerful with fast fashion, is also what you were saying, like the homogenization of style. Where now globally, like you and I can buy the same exact thing from Zara or from H&M essentially. And then I'm here in California and you're in Portugal and we're wearing the same thing. And it's like, well, what happened to the culture of where you're actually living? You know, we all become one. And I feel like you've lost just like there's
this global market, and then we're heavily influenced by the media. And of course, since like 50, 70 years ago, we've been heavily influenced by American media, you know, and American television, American films, and all of that. So yeah, everything becomes the same. And that's kind of sad. You don't need to be the most different person, the most outstanding person walking down the street, you know what I mean? But just, I always want, and I always try to like push people to be, this is what we've always been talking about, and it always goes back to this, being intentional. And embracing their style, because you know, again, some people do need some help, some guidance to flourish a little bit more.
To find that like, presence.
Everybody has something. Like if you see, you know, if you're able to see and smell and touch and feel, like everybody, I think that people should really develop their stances, their opinions on things, and their taste. I always say this to myself whenever I'm feeling high, whenever I'm feeling low, whenever I'm feeling anything. My sensibility, I call it sensibility. My sensibility is the best thing that I have. And my sensibility includes everything from the way I act and react, my feelings, the way I show my emotions, to my taste, you know, to how I put things together, from the way I dress to my room to how I walk. It's what makes me different, stand out, my singularity. And people more often than not are afraid to show their singularity. And you know, also in many cases they're not allowed to show their singularity. You know, in Portugal is a EU member, and it's a liberal country where everybody can, you know, be free, but it is still, because it's a small country, you know, most times still has that sort of like village kind of vibe mentality where, you know, if you stand out just a little bit more, you're going to be looked at. Doesn't mean that people are, and I've felt that every single day of my life, and it takes a heavy toll on your life. So I've a lot of times felt pressured to look the same, you know, as other people, as people walking down the street next to me. And I think that if you don't have a secure sense of self, or if you're not interested in looking into who you are, you're going to be pushed into just looking the same, you know what I mean? But it's definitely that, like there's, especially in the more recent years, you know, Portugal has been, you know, getting more diverse, especially Lisbon has been flourishing so much, which is lovely. But there's still that thing of like walking down the street and an elderly couple looking at you in a certain way, or people, Portuguese people are lookers. They just look you up and down. Might not have like, there might not be happening, like nothing happening inside their minds, but they're just looking. They're studying because it's different. And it doesn't need to be a lot. Like I like to have a very diverse style. There might be one day where I pretty much dress all black, and then the other day I'm dressing like I'm color blocking and I'm wearing all these colors and patterns. I like it to be diverse.
Yeah.
And this is always funny. Like sometimes when I meet someone new and I'm wearing, for example, I'm wearing all black or pretty much all black, and I meet someone new, then I'm like, okay, next time I see this person, I'm going to try to wear something different because I want to show the versatility that I have.
Yes, I get that.
And the things that I choose to wear. But yeah, you don't need to wear very different or stand out pieces if you just put something different together. If you, for example, I love my high-waisted pants. I love to have my cinched waist. I love to wear some accessories. And people just look, you know what I mean? Just try to study you.
Yeah.
But I also understand that a lot of people look because, perhaps they want to do it themselves.
That's
You know
what
what
I
I
was gonna say. Yeah, maybe they're being inspired. Because we talked about, like, we did talk about how, and this is one of the differences from the States and Portugal, is that you all are very into like looking good and representing yourself in a certain way, like being pulled together. Whereas out here in the States, it's totally fine to go out in your like sweatsuit.
Yeah, the athleisure wear is on the right. Yeah, it's one of those things.
What is that all about? Is it just the way it's always been? What do you think that is about?
I think so. All in all, I think, and of course these are stereotypes in a way, but it's also reality. I think that all in all, Europe as a continent is a very fashionable, stylish continent.
I agree. That's why
so throughout our history, we've influenced each other quite a lot. Like if you look at the 1700s with the French fashion that influenced the entire world, all those influences still remain today. And then each country, each culture tries to copy something, but because they don't, which is always fascinating, when they try to copy a certain style, but they don't have the materials, so they change it up and it becomes something different. You know what I mean? Or it needs to adapt to the country's weather, to the country's environment, to people's wallets and all those things. But I think that Portuguese people, especially the women, and that's a whole other thing, the societal pressures that, we put on women is totally different than men. That's a whole other thing. And I witnessed this, with my mother going to work, having a high position in her job, and the way she not only wants, but needs to present herself, all these things. But especially women in Portugal like to dress up a little bit. And it's always fun because sometimes I'm walking around and I might look at an outfit and I think, those pieces are not really working great. I don't want to say this in a bad way, like I'm criticizing. I was just now talking about people looking at me and I'm sort of doing the same. But what I always find so funny in Portuguese people, especially women, and especially elderly women, is the color coordination, for example. They always, like, it might be, the pieces together might not work. There might be a little pattern or something, like a mix of like chill, comfy vibes, but then something really pull up in a formal, but it's the colors. People have like good notion of the color coordination and so people do like to, there's a lot of European influences, of course.
Do you see any current designers pulling from the history? I call it HerStory because why not? Like HerStory. Do you see any designers pulling from that in their current designs? Like, do you see any of that in modern day style? Like if we look at like a peplum, for instance, right? We know that that's from eons ago, right? Like, so I'm just curious if you see any of the designers bringing anything back, or if you feel like they're kind of designing more to fit into modern day.
Yeah. I mean, I was just now talking about how a lot of Portuguese people don't know a lot about Portuguese brands. And then now, I mean, I myself don't know a lot of too many Portuguese names, but I know that there's Portuguese brands sort of bringing back traditional clothing and sort of reinventing. We also have, these days we have this thing of like always wanting to reinvent stuff, always wanting to have like a different stance on something, and we're always trying to reinvent it and make it something different, which sometimes is too much, but more often than not is good, because it creates something different or a different view on something. We're a small country, but we do have lots of traditional clothing, folklore, all those things. And I do see, especially more recently, people wanting to bring back some of those stand-up pieces. For example, we in Azores, we have the archipelago islands of the Azores. They have like this very heavy black cape with it, like a huge cap, like huge. And now there's some designers that went to that design, and now they're changing it, making it more wearable, less heavy, because it's like made with, I don't know if it's like heavy wool, but it's like very heavy. So there's that, for example. There's a lot of the traditional all throughout the country to wear a lot of gold chains, gold earrings, gold rings, especially like in the popular music and the popular dance and the folklore, all that. And so people are grabbing those chains, making them a little bit more simple, and making them a little bit more versatile and more wearable, of course. And we do have national symbols that are recognized by everybody. We have something that we call Coração de Viena, which is heart of Vienna, which is a sort of heart that has like a little tilted point. And every single Portuguese can recognize that symbol. And there's earrings with that symbol, there's necklaces with that symbol. And it's something that those things, yes, people know about and are proud to wear.
Right.
So I think that especially with little things, so accessories, earrings and necklaces, those kinds of things, people like to have those Portuguese symbols.
Yeah, I noticed that at the Christmas market. I went to the Christmas market, and I noticed that they had a lot of that too. It's like the gold filigree, I think it's called, or the gold. It's a specific, I noticed that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she had said, this is Portugal.
But it's like every household, at least somebody in a family has that little heart with the tilted point. Then, for example, this is sort of well known, but perhaps a lot of people don't know it. Portugal is the world's leading cork producer. We produce a lot of cork.
Yes.
Yeah.
I learned that.
We're a small country, but we are the biggest producer of an exporter of cork. And so we, from making, from exporting cork and all of that, we started like thinking, what can we do with all this cork besides just, going to wine bottles and all that. Yeah. And so, there's a lot of clothing items. There's a lot of brands making clothes, making bags, making wallets, making accessories, making shoes, making umbrellas, making everything from cork, which is a really good material. And so it's always fun when you're strolling down Lisbon and you look at like the more touristy shops and stuff. You always see like a cork bag or something like that. But I've always found that really, really cool, because like you don't think about cork and you think, oh, I'm going to make that into a t-shirt. But then, they did, and it's very popular now. So I think that also needs to be more encouraged, those sort of ideas, grabbing these materials, because I don't know a lot about the process with cork, and I know how they extract it, and I know that it's environmentally conscious here in Portugal, but the treatment that they need to make it more soft and to these pieces, I don't know all details about it, but I'm guessing and I'm assuming that it's environmentally not too heavy on the environment, but it's a good material, and it's much better than so many other synthetic
polyester. Yes.
So I think that things like this need to be more encouraged. Look at nature and find what other material without exploiting it to the max.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
what other stuff do we have around us? Yeah. Also, like, I forgot the word, but like when you have, when you go thrifting and you find a skirt, but you don't want to, you want to make it like a dress, and so you like change it up. You know what I mean? Upcycling.
Upcycling.
When
Yep.
that's also another trend that's really, really good. I myself like to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of designers are doing that too with like dead stock. If they have excess fabric, then they're using that fabric to create stuff, which I think is amazing too. Or denim, right? And like changing up the denim. I love all of that. I think we're going to start seeing more and more and more. Like it's a slow evolution, yet I really feel like that's the way that fashion is going. And again, more of us that like scream it, like, hey, you got to start shopping this way, the faster it's going to start to happen.
Yeah, totally. There's brands. When I was in fashion school, during my fashion course, we talked about some of those brands. There's designers that really just work with dead stock, just work with spare materials. They call out the designers and they just put everything together and they make these incredible things, these incredible pieces, and they are hugely successful. And nobody would guess, you know what I mean? I think that's one of those things people like, you can, if you've got it, like you can make anything look good. If you think you look good, you're going to look good.
Absolutely.
If you know how to carry yourself. So people, it's the thing, like people always want something new.
Yeah.
But you can have something new that's not coming, from the racks, from the store, from the mall. You can have something new that's inside your grandma's drawer, and you can change it up. I wear a ton of my mother's coats. I wear a ton of my uncle's 80s button-ups.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can like make it yours. And from the moment you make it yours, it's new, it's different.
And I even think shopping your own closet and just putting pieces together differently. I think a lot of people get stuck in wearing things like I have to wear it this way with this outfit. And it's just playing a little bit and realizing like, oh, I can actually pair this with that and then throw a belt on it. And it looks amazing. I can put that dress over jeans and add this. Oh, that's totally different outfit. So it's exactly, we don't always have to have the newness. It's just about recreating.
Totally. I have pieces that I love and swear by. I'm very picky with my pants, for example. And so I have a few that I always wear, but then I change the top part and it's a totally different outfit. I might wear the same pants on two following days, but I change the top part and it's totally different. On one day, I might wear a turtleneck, on the other, just a button up. Yeah. People sometimes get overwhelmed with fashion and style, and they think they need to become something else, or they need to let go of the things that make them comfortable, the things that they like to hold on to. You don't need to. Like, if you have a set amount of pieces that you want to hold on to, you can. Like, if you have like a best pair of jeans that you really like, keep them, but just like wear something different over it. Try different colors with it, try different patterns with it. There's so much that you can do, whether you've got like the biggest closet or the smallest closet. There's always something. The variations are endless, truly.
So my last question for you is, if you've ever experienced someone maybe in your store or just a friend that you've kind of been helping with their style, if you've ever notice them just kind of transform and change when they put on a certain piece, like if they put something on, like do they start seeing themselves differently? Is there a time or experience that comes to mind that around that?
Well, I've definitely witnessed and felt that in myself a lot of times, but yeah, I mean, it's those small moments. Sometimes when you're getting ready to go out with friends, for example, and your girlfriend is putting on a dress and she's feeling fine, but kind of there's something missing. And then she puts on the entire outfit and it's like, it's complete. You know what I mean? it's that little boost in her self-esteem. And I've definitely witnessed that in the stores. Sometimes people try out like a new piece, and they just they have like a huge smile from year to year. And then added on that, they love that it's a Portuguese designer, it's made in Portugal. All those things are tremendously important and really make a piece special. But I've definitely seen people just like, yeah, this is it. Or like they come in the store sometimes like, oh, I'm looking for something for this event, and they find it, and you know when they find it, and they know when they find it, and they're like, this is it. Or sometimes when people just come in with no set plan, but then they just find something that they really like. I love that. And I also love knowing that these people that are mostly foreigners, people coming from abroad, that they're going to carry these Portuguese names outside, into their countries. And these pieces that people are going to look at and ask, like, where's this from? They're going to say it's Portuguese. I also love that.
Too.
It's people, we really need to be conscious, not to put too much pressure on us, but be conscious about legacy. Yes. And the name that, our name being put out there, you know what I mean? When I mentioned pressure there's a lot of pressure amongst designers and stylists to always do it right, or my work needs to look so good 10 years from now. My work needs to look, present and all those things. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, but just know that, again, your little impact can be so huge and has like these ramifications that just expand all throughout. And who knows, perhaps somebody that bought a dress in the store then went back home and was talking with somebody else, and they loved their dress, and they went to the website and they bought something, or they looked up the brand and all these things. It's like continuum. It's really good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's like the perfect way to end our conversation there. And I am just so grateful for you for joining me today. And I just love your expansiveness and your just point of view and your openness to share all of that. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you. And I do believe that we are changing the fashion industry. I really do believe that. And I think bit by bit, it's shifting and intentionality is coming in, and slower fashion, local design, supporting local designers is all coming back.
I think so too. It's those trends that are definitely gonna stay, but it really starts with small actions, small impact. I know that the way I present myself, I was just now thinking how sometimes I feel like everybody's looking at me in the way I dress. But then I also know, perhaps there's a young kid that's looking at me in the way I dress. And, and I think back when I was younger, and how much I needed that.
Yep.
Or when people see confidence, when people see somebody living in their true colors, or just like embracing who they are or what they like, if they manage to find within themselves like that, the wanting for that confidence, without like being not like envious, but it's inspiration. We all inspire each other in so many ways, and I think that's great. And yes, with time, I think that slow fashion is really, I know it's here to stay, and I know that people are going to become increasingly more conscious and thoughtful about their purchases, because we're all looking for singularity and to better represent ourselves, better express ourselves. So I think that people are really going to be more, hope so, and I'm trying to spread that message, people are going to be more thoughtful about what they put on and what they purchase. And it's the best thing. It's such fun. Fashion is such fun. Style is such fun, really.
It is.
So thank you so much for having me. I talk a lot, and I can talk about these things for ages.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I wanted to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It's great.
Thank you.